and looking at those annual goals. How much money do I want to make? Where do I want to travel? Right? You remember last November when I was in a funk and I'm like, what do I want to do? Like, life is great, family's great, but man, what do I want to do? And I went right to that dry erase board and I wrote down all of the things that I wanted to accomplish in the next year. And here we are, literally a year after writing those things down, and we've accomplished literally everything that was on that list. So sometimes it's not a monetary goal, sometimes it's a goal. So how can we use this next as golden nugget to kind of forecast our year when we're not sure what that year looks like? Welcome to the Life by Design podcast. I'm your host, Kim Ward, a certified master life and business coach, NLP practitioner, and your guide to building a life and business that you absolutely love. Here, we're all about empowering family-focused entrepreneurs to design a leveraged business that supports your dreams, your values, and most importantly, your family. Each episode, we'll dive into practical strategies, mindset shifts, and powerful insights to help you create unstoppable momentum and lasting success without sacrificing what matters most. Whether you're looking to grow your business or get unstuck or align your goals with your lifestyle, you're in the right place. So let's get intentional, let's get inspired, and let's design a life you love by design. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Life by Design podcast. I am Kim Ward.
And I'm Rich Ward.
Welcome. All right. Honestly, we help family-focused entrepreneurs build a leveraged business so that they can maximize profit and family time. Who doesn't want that? That's the best of both worlds. So, Mr. Richard Ward.
Yes, ma'am.
We decided to kick off this podcast talking about structure. And I don't know of any place that's as structured as the fire department, where you spent about 25 years of your life. And, as you know, a lot of our clients come to us transitioning from either a corporate entity or having a job, someplace where there's structure, into home-based business, and they're really, really lacking that structure. So I just wanted to talk to you today to provide tips and just kind of really look at what you've been through in the structured environment, and how can we take those tips and that history that you have and use that to transition into a structured environment to build a leveraged, profitable business that in turn gives us that family time that we desire.
Okay. Is that where I jump in?
That's where you jump in.
Well, in the fire service, you have weekly, sometimes daily, monthly, and yearly things. We all know month of October was hose testing, and June and different months were hydrant testing. So what we found what worked best was you're dealing with a lot of different personalities for us. And we'd go through the calendar year in advance and figure out what are the I don't want to work days, if you would, except for emergency calls. Like hose testing, like I said, hydrant testing, vehicle testing, a lot of testing going on, trainings. So we had marked the days off that we technically would rather not work, if that makes sense, other than emergency calls. And then from there, we broke down into months and into weeks and into shifts of stuff that we could accomplish. It made things a lot better, because a lot of times you go into it thinking that you're going to just hit everything hard, nonstop, and then all of a sudden life steps in, and it doesn't work the way you think it would work. So that kind of helped us out. So really, you have to look at the overall big picture and then break it down into what you want to accomplish in the stages that you need to accomplish it in. And for a lot of people, some people work better long-term out, and some people work better as what am I gonna do today? We would have people floating in and out, and we would have a whiteboard, and each shift would have their own section of whiteboard, and we'd put a list of that month what we wanted to accomplish. Now, sometimes you'd have a guy come in, and he would, he's acting lieutenant for you, and he would come in and he'd break the list down, and they might get it done in 2 days, or it might be the whole month. So it really, you set up your expectation. Works best for you. Some people again work better long term. Some people work better in short little segments. So that's what you have to find out, what works better for you and the people that work for you.
I love that. We start school at a young age and we stay in school for 12 plus years. So it's a very structured environment. And then we move on to jobs, and that's a structured environment. So stepping into entrepreneurship, whether you're working from home or not, there's that lack of structure. And we as humans tend to believe if someone else isn't creating that structure for us, I don't know why we feel like we're incapable of doing so for ourselves. So how do we take, and everything that you're saying, look, you guys know everything Rich just said, we can easily translate that to how we function as entrepreneurs. He said, what are those I don't want to work days? And full transparency, in the Ward House, when our daughters start school every single year, the first thing we do is we print out her school calendar and we see when her school vacations are, when her half days are. And I go through my calendar and I literally highlight those days in my calendar. See? And we're like, look, this is how we create that blend and that balance of work and life. So the I don't want to work days right now for us in this season are around our daughter and her schedule and what we want to do. So looking at that for yourself, that's huge golden nugget, number one. The second golden nugget that I picked up is looking at that year, looking at the calendar year and asking yourself, what do I want to create? And you may or may not know this, but when we write with pen and paper, we activate more than 6 places in our brain. So that's why journaling and writing and documenting is such a great exercise for the brain. You can literally rewire those neurotransmitters in your brain. I was saving this for a very special season, and you can't get this yet. But back in 2018, I realized how very important writing is. That's why journaling is suggested all the time. And not saying my marriage is like this, because we're very happy. That's not just like me throwing that out there. But in relationships sometimes, and babe, we've had clients that don't get the support, right? That they're looking for, of course. But there's times where maybe your spouse didn't do the dishes, or they didn't do the trash, or they didn't do something right. And we tend to grind on those things and let that agitate us. And that affects us, right, mentally. So starting a journal of every single day, writing one thing that your spouse did that you are grateful for. And then when this book is full, you gift it to your spouse. I started this May 11th of 2020. And you'll get it someday, but you can't have it right now. So writing is super important, and looking at those annual goals. How much money do I want to make? Where do I want to travel? Right? You remember last November when I was in a funk and I'm like, what do I want to do? Like, life is great, family's great, but man, what do I want to do? And I went right to that dry erase board and I wrote down all of the things that I wanted to accomplish in the next year. And here we are, literally a year after writing those things down, and we've accomplished literally everything that was on that list. So sometimes it's not a monetary goal. Sometimes it's a goal. So how can we use this next as golden nugget to kind of forecast our year when we're not sure what that year looks like? Because this isn't fire service. We don't have those SOPs and the lines that have to be crossed, right? It's like,
Right.
we have ultimate freedom and flexibility, and sometimes that's a dangerous thing.
Well, absolutely it is, and that's the problem. It depends on, again, what motivates you, and if you don't find out what motivates you, whether it's accomplishing a goal or setting goals, you have to figure out what works best for each person. And if you have multiple people on your staff other than yourself, you have to figure that out too. So for me, it's not about what you want to accomplish, but it's so much about what you don't know what you want to accomplish. I know that doesn't make any sense, but there are so many times that we've done things that we didn't even plan on doing. And I think it's so important to plan for not just what you want to do, but put a percentage away for the things that you don't know what you want to do quite yet. I don't know if that makes any sense. It's sort of like a slush fund that you can be excited over, and it almost attracts more energy because you want to see that grow, because you want to have plans, but you also want to do stuff on the spur of the moment and have that cash. At least that's what makes me feel good. We go on all these things and it's like, hey, you want to do this? Yeah, let's go. We've got it. And that to me is above and beyond. It's cool. It's really
cool. It is cool. So this is going to sound like an obvious answer to you and to me, but how do we know what works for us?
Trial and error, really. You gotta accomplish it. I talked to an individual, a client, about being responsible, and I pointed to the calendar that I put, and that's what I used to work out with, and she's like, "Oh, I'll get a calendar put on my desk," and I told her, and I don't know if we discussed this last time, but I told her, no, you can't, because you cover it up. You want something like we put up yours right across your desk, so when you look up, it kind of channels you and focuses you into what you need to do.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Rich is our get unstuck coach in the Life by Design world. And so a lot of clients will come to him with these quick, like 1-2 punch, like, how do I get out of this season? And he's been that person for me. I mean, yes, he's my spouse, but he's my best friend, and he has so much life skill behind him that when I was feeling a certain kind of way in our business, trying to find that self-motivation, that there's times where you go into your office and you can procrastinate until the sun goes down and you drag your feet and you're like, man, what am I doing this for? Because right now we're planting those invisible seeds and they're not quite ready for harvest yet. And you and I painted the picture of, for us, it was the beach house, maybe the second home that we wanted. So in my business checking account, I'm able to set those reserves where percentage goes to taxes, a percentage goes to operations, so on and so forth. And I was able to set aside a little percentage to watch that beach house fund start to accumulate. And I was like, okay, so now I'm excited to create the structure. And when I come into the office, like you said, when you hung up that dry erase board right there for me, I'm looking at that thing and I'm like, man, I really do want a beach trip. I really do want that. And it motivates you in a way where now you're willing to look outside the box to create that structure. And, just last year, we traveled to places, the opportunities came that we didn't expect. And we took Adriana to the Bahamas, to Puerto Rico twice, to London. We had a hell of a year last year. And it's because of, like you're saying, first you set the goal and then we reverse engineer it.
Yep.
How do we make that happen?
Yeah. It's like, what is the old saying? If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And that's sort of the same deal with motivation. Unless you set up your goals and stand up for your goals, you're not going to be focused. You're not going to follow through on anything. You're going to be what we call squirreling around, getting squirreled. And that's spend more time procrastinating than if you were to actually do it. And that's the key. Making your time is important. It's valuable. And if you sit here and swallow and not knowing what you're going to do, that's all your time. That's everything.
I read something the other day that really hit me and I was like, wow, I know it. But when you hear things, they just kind of hit you differently. And it said, time is the only thing you can spend and never get more of.
True.
And when you realize that, it is more valuable than money. Money is a resource. And so, I asked you that question, which again, it seemed obvious to us. It's how do you know what works for you and what doesn't work? And, we're here to share with you through this podcast and through our YouTube channel and through our coaching and mentorship that you've got to be willing to try, because business and creating that life by design, it's not built on emotion. It has to be built on data. And unless you try, unless you take the action and put one foot in front of the other, you're never going to have enough data to make that determination or distinction of, well, this is working and this is not working, right? Those I don't want to work days. It might sound simple to somebody, but those people who are having work guilt and feeling like the minute I step away from my computer, oh, I can't do it. But you're missing that precious time with the family, right? It's about creating that structure so that one step at a time, you're making one good decision after another, and you're creating that life by design. And we don't mean to sound corny or cliche, but that's ultimately why we chose Life by Design Solutions as our business name, because you're in full control.
We had a chief, and I don't know if I discussed this already, but we had a chief. He came from DC, and he was a strong union chief, but he was just a great chief. And we got a new assistant chief, and he did not want any recordables. In other words, stuff got broken during training, or we did something wrong, and we'd have to do paperwork on it. And so he took all the recordables from, let's say, 10 a month down to none. And the chief came down one day and wanted to know what we're doing. And we said, what do you mean? He goes, well, no equipment's getting broken. So if you're not using the equipment and you're not breaking the equipment, then you don't know what you can and cannot do. And it made sense, because he always said, if you use a piece of equipment and you break it doing the wrong thing, the next time you do it on a fire, you'll do it right. And it's the same thing with figuring out your schedule and what works for you. If you don't try something to find out what works for you, you will never understand what doesn't work, if that makes any sense. So this way, if you screw up, pardon the expression, if you keep on screwing up doing A, B, and C, and D, then all of a sudden you realize you found E, now you're good to go. And that's what's going to motivate you from now on.
Yeah. And we're going to do another episode on fear. What's stopping you? And there's so many layers we can get to in that. So for now, as we're closing out this episode, let's give them some tangible steps. Like step one for you, what would that be? If we're looking to create this structure so that we can collect the data and have the tangible evidence, what would that look like?
Well, I'm trying to.
Yeah. So like step one, what do? I want to create structure.
Well, figure out, do you work better to me, do you work better we discussed this, but a long-term or short-term goals? What works best for you? That would be step one. Do you like looking out a long distance and then coming up with a solution? Or do you like looking at a month at a time and saying, okay, today I'm going to do this, tomorrow I'm going to do this? You could go as far as weekly to find out. You have to find out what steps first. Long-term, short-term, what is the best for you? That to me would be step one.
I love that. And there's a book called The 12-Week Year. We will put our Amazon link for you in the description, in the show notes here. But the 12-week year, if you are a short-term goal thinker and action taker, like Rich is saying, this is for you. I am an annualized thinker. I want to look at what's my number goal? How do I reverse engineer that? How do I break down the steps? What actions have to happen in order for us individually and as an entity to hit those goals, right? But with the 12-week year, they teach you how to break down your annualized thinking into just 12-week segments, so that you're fighting the elephant one piece at a time, as they say. And spoiler alert, in the book, they give you permission that when you do this right every 12 weeks, you get to take that 13th week off with no guilt.
I like it.
I like it too. Although when we go on vacation and people say, oh, are you traveling for business or for pleasure? I always say, what's the difference?
Yeah,
we
true.
blended such a great balance, and that's what we're trying to help you create. So set the goal, determine, am I a long-term thinker, doer, action taker, or does short-term work best for me? And like Rich said, let's reverse engineer that process. What are those I don't want to work days? It's okay to step away. We've
Oh, yeah.
restructured our lives. So I have some very significant boundaries that I didn't always have. I will not work on the weekends. I will not work after 7 p.m. I'm shut down, and it's hubby and wife time. It's family time. It's, fun time.
That's it.
Yeah. Any last words?
No, I think you hit it on the head when you were talking, and I was going to allude to that also. You know, if you have a big goal, even at that's a year, about breaking that goal down into monthly or weekly bites that are more tangible or more able to handle all the aspects of that goal in the little sections, because sometimes even if you're working on a weekly goal or a monthly goal, it depends on what's going on in your life. You may have to change that and alter it and figure out what's going to happen. And at one point or another, you can get back to the original way, but you gotta roll with the punches sometimes and not be too strict or too encased by your own plans that you can't adapt.
It's funny you say that. I just had this conversation with one of our clients last night. In the industry, we have something called a DMO. That stands for Daily Method of Operation. And once we take that annualized or quarterly or monthly or weekly thinking, and we reverse engineer it and break down the steps, what does it take to accomplish X, Y, Z? Then we're not result driven, we're action driven. And we know what the action has to be in order to create that result. For most people, if we create this structured DMO that says every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'm going to do a Facebook Live, right? But let's hypothetically say something life hit you on Wednesday and you didn't get to do that live or whatever the action steps were. And you start to look at this checklist and now you beat yourself up and you're telling yourself what a piece of crap you are, that you're not cut out for this. Maybe you should go get a job. I'm no good. And you take those thoughts to bed with you. And now your subconscious mind is just running rampant, reaffirming what a bag of crap you are, and that you're not cut out for this. You're not going to wake up with a big pep in your step the next morning.
Sure.
So understanding that flexibility and how it feeds into the structure and how it feeds into the goals, something like a bubble chart, like I teach on the strategy side with our clients, having that flexibility with the structure is a great partnership. So instead of saying every single Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm going to be live, maybe you say, okay, I'm committed to 3 live videos this week.
Exactly.
And you draw like a little bubble. And then when you complete the live, you draw the bubble in or you put a check mark next to it. So if and when life hits you, and we know better than anybody, friends, we are not exempt from adversity or challenges, that you can take that time and space to be human and then get back to it without feeding yourself the negativity, the drama, and quite honestly, the self-abuse.
Well, that's what you're trying to do, though. In a sense, you're trying to be self-employed, so you have that flexibility. So to be upset that you didn't do a certain thing at a certain time goes against kind of what we're really trying to accomplish in life.
So many people forget that. They forget that it's okay to have that flexibility. And I love that you haven't been in our industry. I love that. And now you're in the business, because the things that you reaffirm for us, it's almost like we understand what the real world is like. And when we come into entrepreneurship, our brain falls out of our head. It does. It just does. And then having someone say, look, isn't that why you got into this? And you sit back and like, oh, duh.
Yeah.
Okay. Given that permission. Awesome. I love it. So thank you so much. Make sure you subscribe, follow for more. And like I said, we will be back just giving you the tools, the resources, and tips to be able to create that life by design, that leveraged business that allows you to maximize profit and maximize family time. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now. And hey, before you go, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. And as always, friends don't let friends grow and develop alone. So share this episode with someone you love and care about. We'll see you in the next episode.